Welcome on Easy Learning. Now we are going to cover next question of BPC-002 of developmental psychology. It is question number 3. Discuss the importance of identity and identity crisis in adolescence. Answer. In psychology, German psychologist Erik Erikson coined the word identity crisis among adolescents when one is failed or not successful to achieve ego identity. The identity vs role confusion is the stage which is connected to psychosocial development. During this stage, adolescents have to face different aspects of physical growth, including sexual maturity, connecting their ideas about others having towards them. The adolescents have their ego crisis to be resolved to form their self image and face endurance. The crisis is resolved according to one's previous progress and developmental stages, mostly focusing on some everyday issues like trust, autonomy, and initiative. These altogether help one to ponder over everyday subjects. Born in Jewish, Erickson's own idea about being outsider and his later parts of studies in Yurok, okay, YUROK of Northern California and SIOUX of South Dakota, okay, also helped his ideas about identity development and identity crisis. Okay, he himself too was interested in finding identity in childhood. He described identity crisis as exhibiting confusion. He nourished cultural life among the York concept. The crisis, which is unresolvable, makes one's puzzled, struggleful to find themselves, who or what they are. These difficulties leave someone in obstacles which cause to prevent the strong crisis recognition during developmental stages. One who is unable to handle this crisis is always under confusion in taking strict decisions about resolving the issues. Now one starts engaging in any specific task wholeheartedly. Now one leaves or quits the tasks incomplete under confusion. Consequently, unhandled crisis becomes dominant on someone's mind, heart, and body, and one sometimes indulges in many unsocial practices like crimes or drugs, considering this negative misdeed more dominant, powerful than positive aspects of life. To handle the adulthood heftily, HEFTLY, okay, heftily means strongly, for bona fide, reliable, and confident future life after facing the adolescent crisis age, one has to emerge from with strong determination and sense of identity. These all positive aspects always help someone strong in adulthood. Erickson emphasizes on peer groups during adolescence. Peer groups, including cults and fanatics, leave impact on their own companions. They meet each other and discusses. These overall change the fidelity of adolescence if they do not emerge from a cohesive ego identity. To maintain relationships with the other people, fidelity acts encompassing sincerity, genuineness, and a sense of duty. Erickson describes identity or a subjective sense as well as an observable quality of personal sameness and continuity, paired with some belief in the sameness and continuity of some shared world image. As a quality of self conscious living, this can be gloriously obvious in a young person who has found himself as he has found his commonality. In him, we see emerge a unique unification of what is irreversibly given, that is, body type and temperament, giftedness and vulnerability, infinite models and acquired ideas, with the open chains provided in available roles, occupational possibilities, values offered, mentors met, friendships made, and first sexual encounters. Identity Status of Adolescence by James Marcia, is also applicable for further using it on Erickson's framework of identity crisis in adolescence. Marcia developed an identity foreclosure which acts as an identity status whose impact is so much effective on any individual that he she has not any alternative choice except following the given commitments. These commitments are always stamped on by any parents, their ideas and beliefs that are accepted without question. Identity crisis in this way is led by foreclosure status in adolescents to remove their security blankets. Such foreclosed individuals always have to go through the roles, norms, and situation, and being relying on them they are accustomed to. In this way, one's identity is always considered with one's parents and the persons who tackle them. In identity diffusion, Martian identity status can lead to identity crisis in adolescents. In this identity diffusion, one has shortcomings of both exploration and commitment. Consequently, it results with schizophrenia and depression due to the loopholes in identity structure. Eventually, in identity diffusion, one's dream or focus is always destroyed by some outside force. In identity moratorium, as described by Marcia, one has the best alternative ways to explore oneself. The individual oneself is very open minded and thoughtful, but still he she is in their crisis. Overall, in this status, one is independently free to decide, then explore, but still has problems. Marcia describes identity achievement as the resolution to many identity crises. It only occurs when an adolescent has explored and committed towards all important aspects of their identity. Except these two psychologists' point of view, there are other aspects of identity crisis. The adolescents going through this stage discover and find themselves for their next years or stages of life. Most of the adolescents embrace change, identify themselves, make goals or plans for next year of their lives. For some, it becomes identity crisis as they are unable to plan, goal or identify themselves, and thus they have confusion. If the teens are helped in this difficult stage of life, they are a little in comfortableness. Identity crisis in adopted or displaced children. To tackle the identity crisis among adopted or displaced children is a challenging task as these children are unfamiliar with new households and family members. Most of the children are already in trauma, grief, even in their adolescence, and it makes the task challenging for those who are involved in this way. Adolescents search for identity. When there are several siblings in a family, all of these start struggling for their own identity. According to psychologist Stephen A. Johnson, if the first child becomes a doctor, the second will try to become a doctor, the third a singer, and if any of these child does not have any specific profession, he she is lost due to identity crisis. The identity crisis is dominant on such children's such an extent that he she never emerges out from such confusion until he she has any particular goals achieved. Recognize the adolescent's reaction to failure. The adolescents are needed to be encouraged and safeguarded if he she has sudden failure, and for that he she makes responsible to family members, political parties, religious groups, or organizations. As a result of that, some adolescents become social dropouts or turn to drugs and alcohol to deny that the problem exists.